Welcome, everybody. Today, it's my pleasure and honor to be introducing not just a topic, solving a traditional problem, inventory visibility and inventory optimization, putting into action, but with some of the most advanced technologies that we will deep dive into, along with a thought leader and an expert in applied AI in supply chain. With me, it's my pleasure and honor to be having Ashwin Sridhar. Between us, we will cover the following topics. We'll talk about what is the planning gaps that exist today. What's the Google edge? Google runs one of the most complex supply chain in the world, their own data center, and many more, solving customer problem. And we'll hear from Ashwin. And my background and some of what I do, I'll walk you through the demo and the experience we gained as Pluto 7, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So I'll set the context first, and then I'll introduce Ashwin in a minute. At the broad level, if you take semiconductor and high-tech industry, AI agents have not only started to creep up and appear in every organization, but they're going to continue to grow and affect every area, whether it's validation, troubleshooting, testing, physical production planning, inventory planning, finance, logistics, you name it. Just like internet became part of the way of doing business, it became the backbone. AI is becoming, if it's already become in some organization, the backbone of organization. Now let's dissect it all and take it in the context of real world applicability. Today, it's my pleasure and honor to have Ashwin Sridhar with me. He brings not only an amazing background from GE, General Electric, but also has been with Google for 10 years with applied AI and has seen the evolution and knows firsthand, and we'll hear from him. And with my background, 25 years in supply chain manufacturing, solving supply chain and manufacturing use cases using various analytic technology, and again, last 10 years, like Ashwin, applying it for customers and being in the trenches. But before I go any further, let me welcome Ashwin. Ashwin, do you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you, Manju, for that warm welcome. It is indeed a pleasure for me to come and introduce Google Cloud as part of the mix here with Pluto 7 as we solve interesting customer challenges. As Manju mentioned, I've been with Google almost 10 years now, and I've seen us grow various portfolio aspects and really apply them for leading edge customer use cases. I've been involved with AI throughout my life, but this now is really an interesting time I see as we start to kind of bring agents into the mix and make them not just our assistants, but also our partners in really solving leading edge enterprise use cases.
Yeah. So Ashwin, thank you for the introduction. If you don't mind, for our audience benefit, if you could double click and share with us what is Google's vision, and not just in terms of how we applied AI, what should our customers be aware of with the agentic capability?
Absolutely. Give me just a moment. So again, what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is really introduce how Google's thinking about the agentic era, right? And in this, I want to paint a picture on what we've seen in the last few months. I presented this slide not more than maybe 6-7 months ago at another event that we hosted. And it was fairly relevant then, right? Because we were starting to see the growth of agents within enterprises, companies understanding what LLMs are, how to apply RAG architectures on top of LLMs, how to then extend that with tools that then became part of many kind of reasoning and solving loops that they had within the enterprise. We started to see the emergence of multi-agent systems, so agents that could cooperate and solve problems holistically. And From there, we started to see the evolution of remote agents, right? So not just agents that one builds within one's own enterprise, but cooperating with agents externally among other enterprises. So think of, for example, a shipper working with a carrier and so on. So again, a very interesting part of the evolution. But what I wanted to present here is really what we've seen this grow into. As we start to see the application of multi-agent systems within an enterprise, standards come to mind. We don't want bespoke implementations. So we've started to see the emergence and actually the cementing of protocols such as MCP, the Model Context Protocol, where you now have standard ways of integrating with enterprise systems and data sources. As agents start to cooperate both within the enterprise and externally, we start to see protocols such as the agent-to-agent, A2A protocol, that now become very central, so that you have standard ways of discovery and standard ways of invocation across the wire, right? All with security and all the controls that we want to keep in mind. So again, a very natural extension. So this is kind of testament to growth, testament to scale in a standard manner. What we're also seeing is that this same paradigm now extends to industry domains. So for example, the Universal Commerce Protocol that Google actually worked with a number of retailers to introduce recently is actually a very good example of where you're now starting to see standard ways of interaction from consumer surfaces all the way to business backends. So think of now merchants using a very well-defined protocol to actually implement their backends, a model that actually articulates all the key entities within a domain, such as a cart, a checkout, an order, and so on. And then very standard communication mechanisms, whether you're using MCP, whether you're using A2A, or APIs in old-fashioned ways. But this is a very good example of looking at standards, looking at protocols as a way to extend the agentic communication and start to make it very efficient for us to deploy agents that can automatically discover products for you, automatically make purchases on your behalf, and so on. Finally, we move into what does it take now? And this is where I'd like to highlight some of the key capabilities that Google Cloud and Google overall are bringing to market. We introduced the Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform. Many of you may be aware of Gemini as a model. We've extended Gemini as a platform offering as well. And now you have all the key elements that you need to build, to scale, govern, and optimize your agents within your enterprise. Think of all the functions and all the ways you can exercise and implement these functions within agents. So think of, for example, building with something like the Agent Development Kit, which is available in open source. Any framework that you have in open source. Agent Studio, for example, which we've made available as a no-code environment for you to be able to, for business users, to be able to implement various functionalities. And then as these agents become available, kind of exposing them through an agent garden that one can merely just look up and basically incorporate into their workflows. And under that, very powerful models, whether it's ones built by Google or ones built by our partners. Tools and other technologies that one needs to actually effectively ground their results, right? So whether it's enterprise corpus or other sources, whether you're using protocols such as A2A or MCP, and finally making sure that all of this comes together in a manner that can scale well. And what does that mean? That means having a runtime that you can easily deploy any of these agents into, make sure that they have controls like a sandbox where you want to deploy and test, maybe sessions that are long running that you can store and effectively manage, as well as the memory management that goes with providing any context to these agents. So kind of a holistic way of not just building, but deploying it and scaling it. And that is not the end of the story, right? So you want to now govern and optimize. What does that mean? Govern really means now you want to have a solid network as well as an agent identity around it. So make sure that the right kind of um, identity exists, that there is a registry where agents can be discovered. There are policies against which you can enforce what agents cannot do. You have what we see as really threat detection. So basically ensuring that you detect any anomalous behavior, making sure they're compliant with your enterprise standards as well as enterprise security controls. And so all of this from a governance standpoint coming together, and policies on who gets to build, deploy, who gets to access and run these things, and in what manner as it connects to your enterprise systems. Finally, optimizing. What does that mean? It's really kind of when you build these agents to be able to simulate various behaviors, to be able to observe end-to-end all the telemetry that's occurring both within the agentic frameworks as well as in the backend, to be able to evaluate how the agent's performing. So given specific tasks and examining the outputs to ensure that you're testing and validating these before you move them out to production. And finally, optimizing this whole environment. So a solid platform and a set of capabilities we believe are instrumental for any enterprise to be able to build and deploy and manage agents at scale. I'm now going to turn it back to Manju to talk about what Pluto 7 is doing with this framework.
Thank you, Ashwin. That's amazing to hear how build, scale, govern, and optimize. This is a framework that's proven and tested at Google, which is now, like Ashwin, like you mentioned early on, it's about how do you take this and apply the applied AI aspect of it to transform businesses. Google is providing this set of capabilities. How do we as a partner simplify it further so that our customers can stay focused on outcomes and fast time to value? My background, 25 years in supply chain, and I started my career at Cisco and bought all kinds of softwares, what we today call it legacy softwares and SaaS softwares, still saw planning error 20-30%. And it was humanly not going to be possible to reduce those planning errors just because of the sheer data volume growth and just the sheer data volume growth and the amount of decisions you have to make. So what we landed, and this is what I see in 9 out of 10 organizations, and we'll talk about the applicability of what Ashwin mentioned about the framework into the new era. But before that, let's understand the pain, the way it exists today. 9 out of 10 companies, in spite of buying all supply chain softwares, still use Excel spreadsheets and pivot tables. And one of the main reason is they have to trust the decisions, they have to have explainability, and they have governance, which means pretty much the planners are pretty much doing all the things that were shown in Ashwin's framework in their head. And that's obviously not scalable. Even though they bought many of the softwares, the ERP softwares, the so-called supply chain softwares, the optimizers, they all solved a problem and they cost millions of dollars. They gave more dashboards, more alerts. It is a mental fatigue. But the planning error still remains, and most planning cycles are 30 days, 60 days. Imagine if Waymo and Uber were to operate with such planning delays. They won't exist as business. When somebody calls a Waymo or a Uber, the expectation is you'd match the demand, supply, inventory, price, cost, SLAs, everything is under 60 seconds. The reality in today's world is 99% of the companies do not have this, but they're all entering the era where they're going to challenge the legacy software. They're going to challenge the usage of Excel spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet is not going away, but what we are going to do is really augment humans with extraordinary intelligence and extraordinary decision-making capability. To put it all to life, on a lighter note, let's just quickly look at FIFA, since that is something that I'm assuming most of the audience, if not all of them, are aware of or watching and enjoying. FIFA would not be FIFA the way we experience today, with 40 plus countries and billion plus people, and all the three countries that are hosting, US, Mexico, and Canada together. The whole experience is embedded with AI, data, and semiconductor chips, and many more. So if you think about behind the scene, everything that's happening, this is again based on a research, deep research done on Gemini. And if you think about on the world's largest stage, the number of people who are orchestrating, right? People are a lot more efficient. 20 million tons of equipment are moved between countries. Players are scanned digitally. Audience are using phones to understand what's happening and interact from the ticket entry to and so on. And imagine if I have an old phone and now I want to get the best pictures and I want to get my latest Google Pixel phone because it processes images and all much better, it looks better, then I'm getting this equipment, and that's part of the technology that I'm buying, and the chips are embedded in it, the semiconductor chips. Also, the referees, they are using technology to make the right decisions. So technology and the semiconductor chips are embedded with data and AI in your FIFA experience without them flashing in your face that, oh, we are using so and so chips. Now, if you think about the audience experience or me as a customer watching the game, um, when I want to order the phone and I place the order and I expect that phone to arrive before my game. So, which means as a company shipping the phone to me as a customer need to have the product. They need to have it at the right location. It doesn't help me if the product is available in another country, not in the country where I live. It needs to arrive before the game. And when they sell, obviously the company selling to me have to be make it profitable. And also my old phone that I get rid of, it needs to be sustainably destroyed or recycled. So in essence, we're solving the same traditional problem we're solving for thousands of years, having the right product at the right place at the right time at the right cost at the right margin. However, the expectations of the customer, me as a customer, is different. I expect the product, if the US game is tomorrow in Levi Stadium, I want it today. And I'm okay to pay another $20 or $50 more because I want that latest phone as a customer. And if I'm willing to pay $50, uh, the CFO would love it because he would rather move the inventory, which may cost him $5, from another city in Sacramento to San Jose so that it can be shipped to me. It costs me $5, but I'm willing to pay as a customer $50 more. Now, if you think about the customer being happy, the CFO being happy, what does the supply chain need to do to get the positioning right? And that's part of what we're going to deep dive into. It's again going back to make sure that when I want that Google Pixel phone, do I have it? And it could be a phone, it could be a hard drive. It's we can think of, because after I take the pictures, I want to store the pictures in a hard drive. And when you think about those the pictures that I want to store in my hard drive, apart from saving on the cloud, I want the hard drive as well, and I don't want it out of stock. So now this is not just an experience of today's problem where I'm going on the website and searching for the hard drive. Tomorrow, agents will start placing orders. Now we need to think about, when Ashwin showed you that stack, I'm going to be talking to Gemini or my favorite LLM and ask it to find the phone for me, find the hard drive for me, and my agents are going to shop. And when the agents are shopping, they're shopping looking for what's the best deal to meet my SLA that I want to go for the game tomorrow. The data needs to be connected. The company who's selling this, their agents need to be ready to work with, like I want to buy a phone and a hard drive. The agents need to work with, it could be two different companies. They need to work with each other to serve me both the phone and the hard drive. And understanding the business context is important because the both these arriving on a Friday when the game is tomorrow is not very useful. So knowing that extra context is helpful. So combining external data on what's happening in the game, combining with internal data, all of this now brings it closer to the reality. Now, it's easy to describe all of this verbally for a demo preparation, but when you try to put it in real life, and this is one of the points that Ashwin was highlighting, it's not just about building. Anybody can build an agent. These days, building an agent is like building a web page. You can pretty much go learn and be done in 1 hour. But taking that and putting that with the right business context, with the domain knowledge to be able to not just scale and operationalize, but secure and optimize, it's a journey. And there are 400 plus Google components. We have spent 10 years. We simplify that into 4 layers with domain expertise, and that's what we do. So now let's walk you through a demo. So in the case of a hard drive or a chip and so on, if the company has to, let's call it Acme, if the company has to serve this efficiently, remember it's a 60-second SLA from the time I want it to get the confirmation I get. What would that look like? So in this context, we have to keep 3 people happy. We have to keep the customer happy. We have to keep the CFO happy on the margin, and we have to keep the supply chain inventory planner happy. Because if we need the inventory to be available at the right time, at the right location, which means it's a musical orchestra of the different plan, make, source, deliver working. First, I'll show you asking the question in Gemini Enterprise, which is the UI you can think of behind the stack that that Ashwin showed, and then I'll walk you through how the answers become more accurate or more impactful because we have the right foundation for you through Pi Agent or Planning Intelligence Agent, as we call it. Let's take a question. Can we fulfill 50 units of a bundle of a particular memory chip that goes into the phone or is part of the hard drive to San Jose by so and so date, and the revenue risk if you don't, and what's the revenue risk if you don't have it? So in this case, we are planning for something in future, not necessarily for the game tomorrow. So you're asking a question of, is the inventory available, and I need it on a particular date, and what will happen if I don't have it? So you would think that in the memory business, it is December is far, but the lead time is 9 to 12 months. So you're trying to plan ahead for a few months, and you would think that in most cases, an answer like this, you should know it. But if you look across semiconductor and chip companies, to find an answer like this, at the very best, they take 4 hours. And we have been in those conversations where I'm not going to wait for this, and I'll let it come back to you, and I'll show you the answer as it shows. So I'll probably show you the answer and then show you how it came up with it. So the answer here, if you look at it, for asking, do I have the inventory on a particular date, and if I don't fulfill, what's the revenue impact? Just that one question led it to look at what is the inventory, what is the routing, where can I get it from, do I have it in stock, and do I need to replenish it? If I don't fulfill, what's the revenue risk? And okay, based on all the adjustment of placing a purchase order and so on, what is the available to promise, and what's the financial impact? All in under a minute. So now, if you think about the deadline, and it's humanly not possible. I worked for 25 years in planning. It's humanly not possible to do this kind of mathematics at this speed and this accuracy. Of course, we're going to debate about accuracy in a little bit because hallucination is a common problem. I have a theory that even humans hallucinate. That's why there's 20, 30% inaccuracies. That, keeping it aside, we still need the explainability and governance and guardrails that Ashwin mentioned so that we can justify the accuracies and inaccuracies. And of course, you have to build it for agent-first mindset. You don't build it for human-first mindset. That's a paradigm shift itself. 99% of the warehouses built today are built for humans to stare at the screen and run dashboards. How many dashboards can they run in the new world of agentic era? That's a big question. To just complete the thought process here, the question I asked was, can you fulfill the 50 units? And first it's going to check, can it fulfill? Okay, it's able to find out, okay, what's the current stock, what's the allocated stock, what can it promise for the various hard drives and chips. Then, okay, if there's anything missing, if you have to replenish immediately, what's possible, how many days of procurement, production, and logistics, and then what's the risk of doing nothing, which is what the CFO cares about. If you don't do anything, you are going to lose this much revenue. This is the margin you're losing, $280,000, and the customer satisfaction. Obviously, me as a customer wanting to buy something, I won't be happy if you say you don't have it. So keeping all those things in mind, what is the rationale behind the recommendation in terms of where can it get from, which distribution center? So imagine there's a whole supply chain network behind this, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. It's analyzed all those and come back and said, I need you to do this, and this is what you can commit. And if you do this, if you approve this replenishment, you will make 280,000 US dollars. So that's what it came back with. So I'll show you. So when it comes back, what runs behind the scene in that minute, it needs the right foundation. That's what we enable. The framework that Ashwin showed, it's created in layers, like it's a musical orchestra between plan, make, source, deliver, returns. That happens. It's a process. But for that, you need to have an operating system which manages your memory and tokens and consumption and so on. People make decisions as human in the loop. Even though we design agent first, you need to support humans to be able to make the decision as human in the loop. You have to teach the business, whether it's a hard drive manufacturing or a semiconductor or a phone manufacturing. You need to teach the business. No two phone manufacturers or hard drive manufacturers supply chains are identical, and you have to unify the data and you have to secure it. Now let's go a little deeper into the demo. When you bring these layers for a specific scenario, you start off by looking at what's your revenue risk. Like I mentioned, it's humanly not possible to take a situation where you ran a marketing ad, these agents work in harmony, analyze the inventory, and come back with what's the financial impact to CFO, look whether you have it in the store, and orchestra all in under 60 seconds. Remember, when people are talking to Gemini and ordering through agents, or even today through web, they expect you to, instead of make to stock, make to order. If you don't have it, go make it and give me a confirmation date. Don't say out of stock. So now, if you start looking at the speed at which the agents can analyze, it's practically not possible for humans to do it. And it's not a competing challenge between, can I walk 100 floors or do I take the elevator? There is a point where you want to walk. There's a point where you say, from a planning, in this case, walking is equivalent to your planning and decision making. So you look at what's possible. What do you have? How are the orders coming in? What is possible with your current production capacity? What can you make? And where are the bottlenecks? So it is, in this case, for that hard drive, there's one chip that's a bottleneck. And the agents are running 24/7. There is no holiday, there is no weekend. It's running 24/7. It already identified there's a particular chip that's going to delay the hard drive, and it understands your process from wafer to quality check. It understands your bill of materials. Doesn't matter how complex your bill of material. Humans have limitations on, my bill of material is complex, my process is complex. It's a paradigm shift for us we have to stop worrying about human limitations. That doesn't mean we give away all the controls to AI. We still have to be in control, but we need to elevate our thinking to let the agents help us in identifying not just the bottleneck, but recommend what to do next, like a bill of material swap. Or if you figured your manufacturing production, and now when it comes to logistics, you're able to determine what's the most optimal way so that you still make your revenue, you're still profitable, and get to a point where you also are aware of your returns and so on. So just to conclude the demo, it is not just asking the one question, it's a chain of thought. You ask the first question, then you can ask the second question, you can ask the third question. So now you're forming a chain of thought in terms of how you want to plan. There is a point in time in the next few years, we will give more control of planning. Like Gartner says, planners will move from being a creator to a curator, or more like an orchestrator. That's the world we are entering in. So when we do this right, and I would like to hear Ashwin's perspective as well. When we do this right, uh, from my study and observation, we have seen that companies lose roughly about 2% of their revenue because of poor inventory planning, not be able to fulfill to customers, or poor inventory positioning. That's about 4 to 5% of margin, depending on the industry. Reducing a 30% planning error, and even by 10%, means you're saving 2% of margins. That keeps a CFO smiling. We are doing a lot more math. We are doing a lot more math that's humanly not possible. That's applied AI. And agents are there to work together and to help things that we could not do before, but we are still in control. Ashwin, do you want to share anything, anything on your observations and so on?
I think you articulated it very, very well, Manju. So I'll second a few things that you mentioned in your talk track. So first, you want to think of agents being able to execute a lot of the functions that we humans do today, but also grounded in all the information that humans have access to today. This is making sure that this notion of grounding in enterprise truth. The same information that planners might be using today to solve for a specific situation is exactly what the agents have access to. Second, you're providing them the right tools, whether it's in the form of thinking, whether it's in the form of servers that talk to the right kind of databases, whether it's internal information, whether it's external signals and what have you, right? So being able to bring all of that together. And finally, you're able to kind of test, validate these things, right? With the kinds of technology we have now, with it built right into the platform, you're able to validate whether the agents are actually kind of making the right decisions for the variety of use cases that you're talking about. And finally, what the other thing that you mentioned, Manju, is super important, which is humans are finally in control here, right? So whether it's human in the loop as you design these systems, or a fairly autonomous one where you've got these to the point of maturity where you believe these systems can make the right decision for you. But overall, the idea is really enhanced ability in decision making grounded in enterprise truth.
Thank you, Ashwin. Partnering with Google over last 10 years, working with 80% of Fortune 500, whether it's interacting, discussing, doing a proof of concept pilot, taking into production, watching all of those, like you mentioned, planners have a lot of information, contextual knowledge, whether in the form of spreadsheets or documents and emails and so on. Taking all those grounded truth about the enterprise, feeding that as part of the learning loop, and having the agents assist, scan, reason, think, and recommend, brings down your planning error, like improving your forecast accuracy, which looks unrealistic at the surface. But it's not just the technology, it's the process, the change management, I think the transformation that you mentioned, right? So in my experience, not to get to any one specific company, but when I aggregate the learning experience of working with Coles to AB InBev to Cisco to Levi Strauss to VMware and Synaptics and Seagate, and I can go on with a long list of companies, not just from semiconductor and high tech, but in other areas, observing them using SAP, Oracle, Kinaxis, O9. So it's a transformation both on the services side and software side, where companies are now looking at how do I solve these problems, whether AI bubble happens or not, or it diffuses, the complexities that exist today. How can I make it a continuous learning loop with the agentic stack that you shared? Because the information is moving continuously, planning is continuous, human in the loop is continuous, and we're not going to be working 18 hours just because agents work, but they should work for us. And when we think about these and applying the capabilities, like what is already proven Google's data centers and Waymos and so on. How do you take it in the right way to not just build, scale, but also govern and optimize? There's a method to the madness. Google had put the framework out, and we have packaged it so that in 1 month you're built and your business user is using it. In 2 to 4 months, you're already productionizing it and you're scaling it, and you have it for real business use. Imagine, like most of these supply chain softwares or legacy ERPs, it would take 9 to 12 months just to get the first and second stage at the best. Now we are going to the govern and optimize at scale. There is a common misconception, which is where I believe 80% of agents will fail if companies don't follow this governance model, is because they think that they're going to build a quick something on the desktop using the latest, coolest LLMs out there, and they'll take the Excel version of it, they'll combine, they'll create something, go show to the management. Management is excited, and I see this very often. They completely ignore the following, and because management sees something on the screen, they're like, "Oh, let's take it to production." It doesn't work that easily. I mean, it's what you have done is, and also we have seen this happening more often, and I don't want to go too deep in this, but the management in some of the enterprise are giving the controls to the individuals who are running pivot tables in their laptop to run Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, given the flexibility to them. What are they going to do? They're going to run it in their own way, in their head, and whatever they feel. And when the person leaves, the Claude model, the OpenAI, whatever, Gemini, whatever they use, it's also gone. It's not institutionalized. It might look like it's institutionalized. It's not. The company only ended up accumulating a lot of tokens and security scattered. So that's what we are solving. We want to do it the right way with Google, co-selling, co-delivering, and that's what we do it with Planning in a Box Spy Agent. We built a whole community around it. We'll put them on the right journey, and to make sure you select the right use case where there is a meaningful ROI, take it to production, and so on. We want our customers to solve useful problems that has meaningful ROI and do it the right way. We believe with the methodologies that we have put in place, if there's seriousness with bringing data and the people together, your initial solution will be in business and in 2 weeks, and you can start using it in 4 weeks, and of course, then you stabilize and so on. So that's how fast things can happen. But it all starts with first meeting you and discussing what is the problem you want to solve. Let's pick the right problem first, not just the most difficult or the most easiest one. The right problem which has the business value. You have the data, you have the stakeholder alignment, and you have the drive and momentum in the organization to really absorb the change. Technology is 30%. 70% is everything else but technology. And Pluto 7 is Google is there to help the customers. Scan the QR code and request a demo, and we'll be there to help you. Pluto 7 and Google. Our solution is in the Google Cloud Marketplace, Planning in a Box Spy Agent. It runs the stack that Ashwin mentioned about. With that, Ashwin, do you want to provide any concluding thoughts? Anything you want to share?
Absolutely right. Again, you mentioned, it's not just about the technology. Google has very, very powerful technology, and we bring this to bear in a number of ways. But it's also about finding the right use cases, right, getting the right change management in place for everybody to be successful in this. And that's where, we really look to companies like Pluto 7 to bring that expertise that they've garnered with working with so many customers to bear, so that we can actually make this a true journey that for success.
Yeah, journey is the right keyword. Okay, if I can anchor to it as a concluding thought here, Ashwin, right? Google has been around for nearly 30 years, and we've been around, and we look at it together as a journey with the customer. We are not looking for quick POCs and pilots where we show you the magic and then let you figure it out on your own. We want you to succeed. We want to put you on the right journey, and if something is not ready, we'll tell you up front and request the demo, and let's have the 30-minute conversation and enjoy FIFA. And by the way, If this is all done right, I should get my phone in 24 hours. The day will come, and this Christmas, we are all going to be experiencing agentic commerce with UCP and MCP, everything, not even with those tags, but it'll just surface in our phone through our Gemini app. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin.